Hello and welcome to the Talking City podcast coming to you from the Manchester Evening News. As ever, my name's Joe Bray, joined by Simon Bajkowski. And, well, what a weekend. It was a difficult start for the away team, but they showed their quality. And by the end, the away fans were taking the mick, really. But enough about Manchester United versus Liverpool. We were at West Ham to see City make it 3 wins from three. Not bad considering Pep said the start of the season would be a bit of a slog, Si.
Yeah, I mean, can we go back to United for a bit? Because it did strike me on Sunday that, City is 6 points ahead of them already after 3 games, and I'm not sure that gap will be closed.
Already it feels a bit damning
Yeah,
for United because obviously Arsenal dropped points and it felt like the world had collapsed in Arsenal land and they were never they'd lost the title already, and of course that's nonsense, but with United you do believe it a bit, don't you?
yeah. I was talking to a Liverpool supporting friend who was sort of buoyed by the performance on Sunday, and their starts of the season. They've got 9 points alongside City, and they were saying sort of, yeah, I feel like we might stay in the top three this season. Which they might have been expected to drop off after Klopp leaving and whatever. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, Villa haven't started that well. Newcastle are unbeaten, but they've not really sort of shown what they can do. Like Chelsea are still a basket case club, and then they were like, yeah, and I don't think United will get in. And I was like, oh, not even considered that United would sort of break into the top three, and it doesn't look like they will. And it's kind of, I know City fans will enjoy United being slagged off, but it it it's kind of a roundabout way of saying that consistency should never be underestimated. And City starting with 3 wins in a row is very, very good and sets them up for what they will hope to be a very good season. And City might have thought that they were going to be in a bit of a place where they dropped points, because Pep said it before the season started, didn't he? We're going to be late. We're not going to be ready for the first few games of the season. But they've got 9 points from 9, and they've got, I think it's +7 goal difference. Top of the league. It's a perfect start for them in every way.
I think we did our pre-season predictions and I've got a feeling I might have tipped United to do well on the basis that Liverpool might not do well and no one else was really stepping up. So 3 weeks in, I'm already out of date, just like my fancy football team has gone to the dogs already. But I mean, you got Eric Ten Hag saying we're the most successful team after City because they've won 2 cups, but it's a bit of a false comparison, isn't it? Because there's just chaos every single week at United, and yeah, City have so many problems in the sense of no players were there over the summer. They've had various injuries, and your best player in pre-season gets injured on the eve of the season, and he's out for 4 months. And it looks like they'd never been away. And then United are just continuing to do what they're doing. I think, like you say, it shows how well City do at what they do, and everyone says it's inevitable that they're going to do it, but again, they've still got to do it, and United are showing how hard it is to manage it.
Yeah, you never really hear Pep, do you, saying we're the best team in the country, or we're the second best, or the top 2 teams in the country, or whatever. You just see City winning games that show that they're the top team in the country, and that's
And if he says it, it's only after winning 4 titles in a row when he can say we are
yeah,
absolutely the best.
yeah. But I thought they were very, very good on Saturday at West Ham. First time I've watched them live this season in the Premier League after sort of dossing about on holidays for a few weeks, and they looked really, really sharp. I was very, very impressed.
That's interesting because, like, yeah, we've seen the sort of evolution of the Kovacic role, for example, and the City have been playing with Doku and Savino, but Savino wasn't there, and Grealish comes back, so it was sort of an evolution of the first few games. So to come in blind really sort of shows how far they've come in that sort of short space of time.
Yeah, and I thought Grealish was very good. I sort of he did his usual trick where he gets 0 goals and assists and opens himself up for people to say, "What's he doing?" But I saw a replay of the second goal today, and a large part of it is him driving past attackers and into the box and then playing the right pass. And that is peak Jack Grealish is exactly what you want from him. And that's what he gave. Him and De Bruyne in the first half, sort of overloading Wan-Bissaka on the left was pretty unstoppable. And then kind of Bernardo Silva joined in a bit in the second half. And yeah, it feels like City have a lot of options this season, and you don't want to get too carried away, but it kind of feels like the last few seasons, like teams have been really defensive against them and sort of very much low block and congest the middle spaces. And it's kind of been City finding a way past that more often than not. But with the sort of going wider this season, it's almost like opened up another box, and it's like, oh, City can take you down this way and this way, and it feels like they're a lot more creative, which is quite exciting. It's exciting for fans, and it's also, you know, refreshing for everyone that after 7-8 years, City is still sort of finding new ways to play and new ways to beat opponents.
And we always sort of look at the start of the season, don't we, of what are they going to do differently. And last season it was Kyle Walker was suddenly a winger and Foden was making that dual number 10. And we're thinking, okay, this is interesting, this is new, this is what they've been working on. And I've just seen a graphic of City's sort of where they've been focusing their attacks this season, and it says 21% is through the middle and the rest is on the flanks. So that's only 1 in 5 attack basically is through the middle, when last season was predominantly central, you would probably say. And they moved away from that winger model, and now it seems they're firmly back. And yeah, Savinho and Doku definitely help that, but Grealish plays his part as well in hugging the touchline. I mean, De Bruyne was a sort of definitive left winger for parts of that first half. He was on the touchline, and Grealish was inside. And yeah, I think that was an interesting tactic as well, which they've been hinting at in the last few games. De Bruyne's been helping out whoever that left winger is, but this was a bit more defined and concrete that he was a left-sided player. I suppose his assist for Haaland against Ipswich was off the flank as well. But no, I'm always interested at the start of the season to see what they've been working on, where Guardiola thinks he's going to win the league basically this season. And it feels like it's width this time. And did he say something in the press conference about crosses, and he wants more crosses and getting them to the back post to Haaland, but it doesn't work all the time, but they're getting there a bit.
Yeah, I did feel like they put a lot of crosses into the box to Haaland at West Ham, and I mean they created that early chance that he skewed over with his head, but then obviously the second goal comes from passing it around the box and finding Haaland, and Haaland doing very well. Yeah, and that is what Guardiola wants. He wants people to find Haaland more so that Haaland can score more goals, which sounds pretty terrifying if you're anyone but Manchester City. And I think for, you know, there, like you say, there's always kind of tactical evolutions, and some are more exciting than others. And I think if you're weighing up sort of Kyle Walker playing as an advanced winger or Kevin De Bruyne given license to roam wherever he wants, De Bruyne probably sounds the more exciting one and the one that will lead to more goals. And so it kind of looks so far this season. And De Bruyne as well. I mean, it was kind of a game of two halves for him, because in the second half he wasn't great, and when he loses the ball, you know, West Ham are better than most teams for being able to just turn defense into attack in the blink of an eye. But in that first half, he was absolutely brilliant. And again, it's kind of like you don't want to fall into cliches of like new signings, but if City can have De Bruyne fit for this season and towards, you know, the best of his powers, then like, boy oh boy, City are going to do well this year.
And this is a side that hasn't really seen Phil Foden this season. He played the second half against Chelsea, but if he could do that role on the right, maybe it feels like it could be quite an exciting attack. And this is, I mean, they're going to be looking for a way to play without Haaland when Haaland can't play. So yeah, De Bruyne sort of roaming around and just picking those chances and working with whoever he can. And I mean, yeah, before the game we were saying, oh, Wan-Bissaka's done quite well against Grealish in the past. So what do? You put two players against him, and he didn't know where to turn. And like you said, the three goals were all central. When you said it, then I was like, I've just been preaching about how wide they've been going, but all of the goals were central. So if you can occupy your wingers and then turn it on in the middle when it matters, then I mean, 1 in 5 attacks might go through, but if three of those result in goals, then you're doing all right. And I mean, the first one and the second one were from West Ham mistakes, was it? The first one definitely was, but it was quick turnovers from getting possession and getting the ball into the box, and Haaland makes no mistake. And I mean, the third one is towards the end, and Nunes does well to get Haaland going. He had a quiet second half, and then he was never missing that, wasn't he? He's in ridiculous form. But it,
He,
it felt a very, very clinical performance when they needed to, because West Ham started well. They got a goal against the run of play, but they were never out of it until that third goal.
yeah, there was about 20 minutes in the second half when it was a bit edgy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think was it early in the second half when Kudus hit the post?
Yeah, because I think
Um,
De Bruyne hit the post. There was a
yes, De
five ten
Bruyne at
minute
the
period where both.
yeah,
I don't know where my timeline is, but yeah.
De Bruyne at the post at 1-0, and then a minute later it was 1-1.
Yes, that's the
And
one.
it was
Yeah, yeah.
one of those kind of could be a swing moment in the game, and then City went 2-1 up again, and then I think West Ham hit the post early in the second half, but
Yeah.
they were so dangerous with Bowen had Guardiola's number basically for most of the game, and Kudus is a fantastic player as well. So yeah, for spells in that second half, City were under the cosh, and even at the end, I think Edison made a terrific save when it was 3-1 to sort of keep City's win. So it was dangerous, but Haaland just looks so sharp and so good, and like the finishes were all straightforward, but it like the third goal, his anticipation to see that Nunes has got the ball, so he needs to get himself into a position where he's sort of on the last line without being offside, then the run through, then the chipped finish. He's just like world beyond its galaxy class centre forward play. He's
It's just
just one,
relentless in how good he is, isn't it? It's not that he does anything completely spectacular, but that first touch for the second goal, not many
but
players can do that. It's not an amazing first touch, but it's exactly what he needs to do to get that shot away.
it's all it's relatively spectacular because no
Hmm.
one else can do it. No one else does what he does on that basis for so long. It's like when people say like, "Oh, why can't you clear the first man with a corner?" And it's not that people can't, but it's just that like they don't every time in that situation and things. But Haaland is just like 99 times out of 100, he does everything right, and it leads to a goal. And no one else can match that consistency of quality. And that's why, one of our colleagues tweeted like, Haaland scores hat tricks like other people score goals, and it is just that thing. He just scores and scores and scores, and like 2 goals after 30 minutes, and you suddenly like Haaland's got 60 minutes to score another hat trick, and then he nearly doesn't do it, but then he finds the moment. He's just an extraordinary player who's like we will never see again, and he looks to be, as fit and sharp as he and Pep are saying he is.
And he very, very rarely misses a one-on-one, even however difficult the chances. There was one at the end, but he was basically on the byline, and he can slot it in the corner like the first one. He can chip it over like the third one, and like he did against Chelsea. I can't remember a time when he's been bearing through on goal and he hasn't scored. I'm sure there are examples, but
Yeah,
even then, I think against Chelsea, he said he missed one last season, and it was playing on his mind for a year, and he knew what to do the next time.
yeah,
So he's just got that mentality, hasn't he? And yeah, like you say, hat tricks. It was his 11th in 102 appearances, so one every 10 games for City. In the Premier League, it's one every 8 games, is it? Eight or
yeah,
9 games.
yeah.
It's that
It-
stat, isn't it? With Henry took 200 odd appearances to get 8 hat tricks. Haaland's taken 69.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Aguero's top with 12. And you're sort of like, well, yeah, Haaland might beat that this season. And it is like you say, with all the finishes that he does, like they're not spectacular, although the second one was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But it's knowing what finish to make that sort of means he scores all the goals. It's sort of like, everyone can hit a perfect golf shot, but it takes someone very, very special to know how to hit a perfect golf shot every time with every club and which club to use in which condition. And Haaland's the same. He's just like, he finds the right finish every time, where most other strikers in the world don't. Just what a player. And yeah, what all City need is for him to come back from international duty as fit as he has been, because yeah, he's in incredible form.
Yeah, I think he's on 97 goals in 102. We were chatting on the way back from West Ham. When do we think he's going to get 100 goals? Which, by his standards, it could be the first half of the next game against Brentford. But you were saying
Yeah.
you think it might be a little bit further, which also could make sense.
Well, he's got 3 very difficult games after this, in the sense of Brentford, Inter, and Arsenal. So Arsenal was the game in which, after the 0-0 at home last season, Roy Keane said he was like a League Two player. Inter Milan, they played in the final of the Champions League, and he didn't get many opportunities. And Brentford away was interesting last year because he didn't score. I think it was early Feb. I think he was coming back from his injury. But he didn't score. But it was around that time where people were sort of questioning him a bit, and it was around that time that Pep was sort of saying, no, he occupies defenders. And I think Thomas Frank might have said it as well. But he didn't score, but Foden got a hat-trick. And it was almost like he took up all the Brentford defence to create the space for Foden. So, yeah, I think he will be very heavily marked against Brentford, Inter and Arsenal. But with the form he's in, you just can't back against him.
Yeah, there's that thing of, does he score enough goals against big clubs or in those games where there's not much space? But you can't ever bet against him, because he will go and score against Arsenal. He will score against Inter, and yeah, I think there's as much chance of your very logical explanation and also getting it in the next game, because he's on that sort of hotter streak of form. We'll cut to a break there, and we'll come back after to discuss a bit more on Kevin De Bruyne and another of City's better players at the start of the season. Welcome back to the Talking City podcast. 4 wins now at the start of the season, including the Community Shield. 4 starts for Rico Lewis, and he is looking very, very good. He got an assist for Haaland because he justified that by saying, well, I knew he'd score, so I'd pass it to him, and it was as easy as that. Haaland almost returned the favour, but he leant back, and you wanted Haaland in that position to have a shot at Areola rather than the other way around. But he started really, really well. He's not just playing a right back going into defensive midfield. He's a right back going into attacking midfield and a false 9 at times. He's an extra player in attack, and he told us in the summer he wants to play more attacking midfield. Pep apologised that he couldn't play him there in pre-season. He's not played him there at the start of the season, but that's where he's popping up, and I'm really impressed. I can't really see where Kyle Walker gets back into the side.
Yeah, basically. He's done an outstanding job, and I think Pep said he deserves to play. And the only reason that he sort of won't play is that he can't play 3 games a week every week. But I think as well, it's kind of, Pep was asked about it after the game on Saturday, and his first response was like, "Did you see him when Kyle came on? Did you see him in the pockets? like how good he was. Um, and that was kind of interesting in itself because, like you say, he's played right back because Walker's been absent, and he wants to play further forward, and he's he's been allowed to play further forward, and he's kind of gone forward as the defender stepping out of defence, and Guardiola's been a bit more defensive, covering across, but keeping him in the team while Walker came on was a sign that, like, even if Walker plays, there's a good chance that Lewis could play as well because he's so good. He's so good kind of anywhere you pick him. That was talking about he's free. He's free anywhere, any situation. You have the ball, he will be free. I think Pep said it took many years to find someone with this ability, which is quite the compliment from a guy who's will go down as one of the best managers in the world ever. And Lewis is just flying. It'd be interesting to see if he gets a chance with England this season. Lee Carsley has picked him for these first two games, so there's every chance that he can be involved in that. But from a City perspective, like you would want him in the team against Brentford and going forward, really, because he looks so good and he brings so much. And I mean, you were talking about it during the game, but like the way that he and Bernardo Silva kind of use their weight, they're not like pushed off the ball or whatever. Like he has an obvious deficiency in that he's small, but he's sort of made it that he doesn't seem to have that as a weakness even.
No, not at all. And he always pops up in defence. He might be racing into the opposition box, but if there's a break, he's almost always in the right place to do his job at right back as well, which he could be forgiven for not doing and expecting someone to cover. But especially when their turnovers were quite fast and direct. That often, and he was often the one making the clearance at the end.
He's sort of like the opposite of Walker in that sense, isn't it? In that, like with Walker, you get the very obvious. You see him putting his afterburners on and charging 50 meters to cut out the attack. You don't see Lewis running back. You just see him there. It's almost as if he's like teleported back to right back, and he's like, "Yep, I'm here to clear the ball."
That's it. You don't know how he got there, but he's always there. Whether it's in a side position, it's ridiculous.
And I feel like he's still very much someone who's under the radar. Like City fans absolutely love him, but I don't think anyone who doesn't watch City that much would kind of realize just how good he is. But yeah, I mean, he's got the foundations there to have a phenomenal season.
I think that this month, like you say, for England, he's got a bit of an advantage because he's worked with Carsley before, who will know exactly what he can do. There's no Kyle Walker, no Kieran Trippier. There is an opportunity there at right back. I know Alexander-Arnold started the season quite well. I think it'll be interesting to see where he plays. Do you even play him in midfield? Because there's not that many midfielders around, and you're still looking for that partner for Declan Rice that could be Mainu, there could be an opening there. So I think a new era for England could be he could have quite a big advantage with Carsley being the one to start the after Southgate era for England, and then if he manages to start against Arsenal and Inter, which on form he deserves to, that's the sort of vote of confidence in him because he didn't start those games last season, and he got out of the team and didn't get back in, and Guardiola sort of apologised again and said I should have played him more. If he can start those, Kyle Walker will be looking and thinking what can I do to get back in, but on form, Lewis is the one to go forward. So we'll see what he's up to on international duty. We spoke to Kevin De Bruyne after the game. He hasn't spoken yet since the summer when he said that he'd be tempted by a move or the absurd money that he would have to consider if an offer from Saudi Arabia came in. He sort of clarified that and said no offer did come in. He didn't speak to anyone. Nothing happened. So he's back. And in terms of the contract situation, he basically said there's no talks. There's been a transfer window and it'll happen. He's relaxed. He'll make the decision for his family, and a hint of a needing the project to be right, but also he knows exactly what City can offer him. It's like everything with De Bruyne. He says everything's so laid back. You're reassured, but then he dangles a carrot, but also leaves as many questions unanswered. I thought, but to hear that he's relaxed and not bothered, and you compare that with Mo Salah, who said, "Yeah, it's his last year at Liverpool." It felt like it. He was keen to say that and just set the record straight a little bit, even if he didn't answer every question and say he definitely wants to stay.
Yeah, I mean, De Bruyne basically did what Salah did in the summer, didn't he? When he talks about the tempting move to Saudi and how he would definitely consider it, and no offers were off the table, and anything else. It was, yeah, it's an interesting situation with kind of both De Bruyne and Salah being in the last year of their contracts. Because yeah, next season the Premier League may look very different without the both of them. But yeah, De Bruyne does seem to be settled now. Now everything has been agreed for him to stay for the season, and yeah, I'm sure there will be talks to see what comes next. But De Bruyne will want to be in the best possible position by playing as well as he can, to put himself in that position for any talks about extending beyond next season. It'll have been 10 years at City by the end of next year, but still plenty to offer going off what the start of this season has shown. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see what happens with him beyond this year, I think.
I think he did say that as well. He was like, his main focus was to play football, play well, and just start the season running. Because I mean, last season he was out for half of the year, and then he came back very well. But I think he probably knew that he wasn't fully firing, but he's had that break now, probably helped by Belgium not going all the way in the Euros, and he looks very good, as we were saying earlier at the start of the year. I did enjoy that he was saying, "Oh yeah, there's been a lot of noise," and it was like you did start that, Kevin, by saying you'd be open to a move twice,
Yeah.
but this, I mean, it's just I always find it remarkable when we speak to him because everything's just the most chilled out, relaxed thing in the world. He's not bothered about anything at all. He can be when he's having a go at reporters in the Euros, but when he's in this mood and when it feels like when he's the most relaxed, he's at his best.
Yes. Yeah. 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 He is incredibly dry to speak to, and yeah, doesn't get excited by much, does he? He's everything's very matter of fact, and playing as well as he does is just like the most normal thing in the world. But yeah, it's always great to speak to him just because he is in the position that he's in and he's the footballer that he is, but he's also a nice guy and one of the people who will speak to you more than most in the City squad.
Which is important, of course.
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely gets your brownie points. But yeah, he's looking like he's going to be have another big season. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Foden comes back, because it kind of felt a bit like a tipping point last season when playing them both in the same team towards the end of the year wasn't always the most synchronized. But I think the way City have started this season kind of it's a different style slightly that probably helps both De Bruyne and Foden.
Another thing that we've sort of not mentioned, and it won't matter because Rodri will come back in when he's back, and he was on the bench but didn't come on. And I think you said in the build up to this, having Rodri rested for 2 months will be very important in the long run. But that's 4 wins now without him. It felt like that was the big story last season where Rodri doesn't play, City lose. Kovacic has been good, not perfect, but yeah, at the start of the season he was very good. It's useful to have these few games, isn't it, to call back to and say, well, actually, we do have a way of playing now without Rodri, and we can give him a rest.
Yeah, and it's kind of it feels like the Kovacic has done all right. He's done well. He's probably enhanced his reputation, but it feels like a team thing, and that's what
Mhm.
Guardiola wants because he doesn't want his team ruined by taking out one player. And previously, without Rodri, it's been really obvious in Rodri's position that they've they've suffered because and that teams have had more joy against them because Rodri's not there. And they've had I don't think City have done better this season because Kovacic is there. I think it's been a collective thing. Maybe having Lewis the one going forward and having three centre backs behind has given a bit more help, or but also Bernardo Silva running back and things like that. It's felt like the team collectively have found a way without Rodri. And then, like you say, you think about it and you think, right, well, when you add Rodri back into the team, who is levels above Kovacic and anyone else, like they're going to be considerably better than the team that's won their opening three games.
Yeah, I think Lewis and Bernardo are the two key ones. Kovacic deserves to get the praise, but having Lewis on one side going between defence and attack and Bernardo dropping back when he needs to, but also carrying the ball forward gives Kovacic that protection that he asked for. Basically, he said he can't do it on his own, so he needs someone else there. And the back three that forms when Lewis goes forward is another layer of protection, and that's what they needed and what they didn't have last season. Calvin Phillips doesn't give you that. Whether it was John Stones, wasn't it, at Aston Villa where it didn't really work. It was Kovacic at the start of his career and Nunes that didn't really work. I think time has helped Kovacic and probably Guardiola as well to realise that there's not a like for like replacement, but you can absolutely play a different system, and Gundogan as well will do a similar role that maybe Bernardo's done in floating between defensive and attacking midfield. So I think quietly that's probably one of the more important things that City have developed over these 3 or 4 games before the international break is a system to play without Rodri. Before we go, Si, we've learned the Champions League fixture list. The last two of the last 3 games are away at Juventus and PSG, but on the whole, it's quite a favourable fixture list, especially when you consider what Arsenal have got. Is it Atalanta, Spurs, and City away in a row coming up, and Liverpool have got Real Madrid away, and then is it City? I'm losing track of who it
So
is, but there's
Atalanta have got Arsenal have got Atalanta away on the Thursday night,
yes, that's the one.
um, before they come to City on the Sunday, which is horrible luck for them
And
because
City are playing on the Tuesday, aren't they? At
City are playing
home.
Wednesday, but at home to Inter.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think you said it's basically 2 days extra City have got
yeah.
to prepare for that game. And Guardiola said like Atalanta are like going to the dentist. They're not a fun team to play against. City fans will have warm memories of Ederson getting injured and then Claudio Bravo getting injured and Kyle Walker going in there against Atalanta. And then 3 days later, City played at Anfield and were without Ederson and lost very easily. They might have lost with Ederson, but it was one of those where it's like, no, that's the worst thing you want to happen. And then, yeah, I think Liverpool have got Real Madrid at home in the week where they also host City. So, yeah, it's big.
And City have Feyenoord at home in that week
Yeah,
as well. So
yeah. So yeah, it's turned out pretty favorably. But as you say, they will have to sort of have got the bulk of their work done in their with their fixtures with Juventus away and Paris away being two of the last three.
yeah, I'm looking at the end. They've got the farm against Bruges, which should be straightforward, and that helps because they've got Chelsea at home, which will presumably be on the Sunday because of the Conference League, and then Arsenal away directly after it. So that I think they have been helped a little bit by the way these fixtures have fallen. Although Bournemouth away, Sporting away, and Brighton away in the space of 7 days does feel like it's going to be a lot of travelling and not a lot of training for City, even if the opposition should. I mean, it'll be tricky, especially Brighton and Sporting, but that's going to be a difficult week just for the travel. But yeah, I know Liverpool fans and Arsenal fans are not happy with this mysterious fixture computer. So City should be quite happy themselves.
City have always been in UEFA's pocket, haven't they?
This is it. They're best friends, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week. If you've got any questions for us, drop it in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter, because we need some ideas to talk about in the second week of an international break. So help us out, and we'll see if we can answer any questions you've got. Like and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening, and we'll be back next week to preview City's home game against Brentford.